2 days ago, I came back from Australia yesterday. I was there for a week. I was there for yeshiva business to recruit students, and visit my daughter who was doing Shut Lumi in Sydney, Australia. So somewhere, I think somewhere on the plane or Thailand, somewhere on the way, I got the message to give a shiur, asking to come to give a shiur. So here I am, a little bit jet lagged. So if I fall asleep in the middle, you'll forgive me. But here I am. So in this week's parasha, Parashat Baalotcha, there is a very famous paragraph. It's world famous. It's world famous because we sing it on every time we open the Aron. ויהי בנסוע הארון, ויאמר משה, קומה השם ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו משנאיך מפניך. That's what we sing. Translation: when the Aron travels, Moshe says, raise Hashem, and may the enemies disperse before you, and your enemies run away, as if before you. The next pasuk we don't usually sing. The next pasuk, which I don't have on your sheet, uvenucho yomar shuva Hashem revivot alfei Yisrael. And when it settles, the Aron, right, there's a time for the Aron to settle. Uvenucho yomar shuva Hashem revivot alfei Yisrael. So the Aron, as if, has two functions in this pasuk, these psukim. It travels and it settles. Now, what's quite unusual about these two psukim in the Torah is that they have two famous nuns around them. Good to see you. Two nuns around them, which is almost, if you think about it, like a upside down nuns. Yeah, they're almost like brackets. And the Masorah, as if distinguishes these psukim from the entire Torah, and Chazal teach us that perhaps this is not just a paragraph, but maybe even considered an entire sefer. Why? What's so important about these psukim? That these psukim are as if a new book. That until now we read Bamidbar, half of Bamidbar, another book, two psukim, and then we have another half of Bamidbar, maybe both half of Bamidbar. What's going on here? What is this idea? Now, I'm not giving today a parsha shiur, but I do think that this is it's very important for our shiur today to start at least to explain this idea. Why is it so important? The answer is because if you look at the psukim of this week's parsha, you'll realize that something very dramatic. Thank you. You know, when I was in Australia now, I had to speak. They speak funny. All these accents. And they say, "How's it going?" That's what they say. Like Mani Shma, they say, "How's it going?" And I'm not like, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" I'm not going anywhere. How's it going? How are you going? They say, "How are you going?" You see that?
That's classic English, no matter which one.
Really? How are you going?
How are you going?
No, they how are you going?
No, but how is it going?
No, but how are you going, they say. Well, whatever. So I'm a bit confused in my English right now. Okay. So,
Good day, mate.
Good day, mate. There you go. Okay, so there's something very dramatic here in this paragraph. What's dramatic? That before this, the whole build-up of Sefer Bamidbar is about how we are about to enter the land of Israel. From the beginning of Bamidbar till Perek Yud Pasuk Lamed Daled, it's all about Machaneh Yisrael preparing to march into Eretz Yisrael. The whole reason, let's start from the beginning. The whole reason why are we counting the people? It's called Chumash HaPikudim. Why is it so important that we call the entire Sefer Bamidbar the book of Numbers? Why is that so important? What's so significant about Pikudim? The answer is because we're not just counting the people now because we're interested to know their numbers. We are counting the people because we are interested to know the size of our army as we march into Eretz Yisrael. And that's why Shevet Levi is probably counted separately, because they are not part of the army. People, they say that this is where the Rambam got it. The Rambam says that Shevet Levi is putter from going to war. It's not said anywhere explicitly. The Rambam says this idea. The question is, where does he get it from? Because it's not written in the Torah explicitly that Shevet Levi don't go to the war. So people suggest that it's from this fact that they're counted separately. Counting them, the flags, marching with the flags, is al-tiv otam. It doesn't mean tzava like we mean army, but it means a camp that is now marching in a form that is about to go to Israel. Everything is ready. If you look at all the psukim before that, they're all about going to war, going into Eretz Yisrael. And then we read in this week's parsha, we describe how they're marching, how they're entering. And what's the end of that? Viyehi b'Nesua. The Aron is about to march in front of Machane Israel. They're about to go into Eretz Yisrael. Right before that, Moshe says to Yitro, come on, my shver, come with us to Eretz Yisrael. But he doesn't say mother-in-law, he just says to the shver, if you notice, right? He invites him to come. But why? Because we're about to go to Eretz Yisrael. And then what happens right afterwards? Vihehi a'am ki mitoninim ra. From here it's all down. If you look paragraph after paragraph after paragraph until Parashat Shlach, Chetem Meraglim, it's about how people are complaining and whining, and leads to the sin of Chetem Meraglim, which means we're stuck here for another 38 years. So this parsha by Bnesua Aron is in a very important point in Jewish history. It symbolizes the moment from which we were on the ideal was about to happen. We were there. We were so close. And then we sinned. We failed. We got stuck for 38 years. So that is the perhaps the reason why these are such important psukim, to distinguish between the Christ, the potential and the crisis. But I want to understand more. What is this Aron that travels and that the enemies disperse and they run away? What is the idea of this? So I'm basically going to teach and learn together with you today a part of a Yortzeit shir of Rabbi Soloveitchik. Rabbi Soloveitchik has a Yortzeit shir he used to give every year on Gimel Shvat. Perhaps people were there, participated in it. Okay, so maybe you heard this one. I don't know. You'll tell me if it's right.
We'll see if I remember.
I once quoted. I remember once a few years ago just looking up something that someone quoted the name of Soloveitchik, and I spoke to Rav Bick in the lunch Shuvot, when the Rebbe said, I was there, he didn't say that. So you have to be very careful, right, when you quote people that actually were somewhere. But this is from a book that was printed, the Yortzeit Shir of Soloveitchik. I'm going to share a certain idea about it to do with these psukim. Small introduction, though. I may have mentioned this once before in one of our shiurim. The halachic phrase or halachic concept of Kedushat Eretz Yisrael is a halachic phrase. When we talk about Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, when we explain that Eretz Yisrael has a status of Kedusha, I am not using that phrase in a philosophical way or a theological way. Eretz Yisrael is special, we know that. It's special, it's God's land, whatever you want to talk about that, whatever it means. But when we use the phrase Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, it creates halachic nafkaminas. Right? Whenever we use the word Kedusha, by the way, Kedusha, people many times confuse the concept of Kedusha as a philosophical, theological concept and the halachic one. In the world of halacha, Kedusha is a halachic term. What does it mean in machshava? I'm not talking about it right now. In halacha, whatever is kadosh is restricted. Okay, even the phrase that we copy from there for kiddushin, right? What does it mean? What does it mean to mekadesh a woman? I have to be careful because my future mechutin is sitting here. So what does it mean? What does it mean to mekadesh a woman in the yeshiva world? To make her aser, right? When you mekadesh a woman, you make her aser. It's a very romantic way of looking at marriage. When you mekadesh a woman, you are making your, it's a Gemara says that, you are making your asr on the whole world. Like Hegdesh. That's why the word Kedusha. Because Kedusha means restricted, and restricted in halacha means halachic restrictions. If until now a woman was able to be potentially marry anyone, by you Mikadesh her, you separated her and created an Eshes Ish. Now she's asr on other people. That's the classic way in the yeshiva world to describe what Kiddushin is. So therefore the phrase can be used for marriage. But, for example, when I say that a fruit has Kedushat Shvi'it, what does that mean? It means that unlike other fruit that can be, mushed, thrown in the garbage, this fruit is separated from all other fruit. It has Kedusha, and therefore there are certain ramifications, halachic restrictions that apply to this fruit. You can't throw it in the garbage. Now, Rabbi Soloveitchik once said, according to my father at least, I heard from him, he said, Kedusha almost always in halacha is done by man. There is nothing in this world, maybe nothing, almost nothing, that is kadosh from birth or from a kadosh baruch hu. Kedusha, halacha kedusha is a concept that is associated usually with man. We create kedusha. Now this phrase comes up in a few areas. So when we use this phrase regarding Eretz Yisrael, then what it means is that there are some parts of Eretz Yisrael that are restricted and have certain halachic restrictions to them. So, for example, if I say that the Jordan Valley has Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, which by the way doesn't, we pass and say that the Jordan Valley does not have Kedushat Eretz Yisrael today. That means that things that grow there, theoretically, are not chayav in Shemitah, Trumot Ma'asrot, etc. These are huge questions regarding the Arava, Eilat, and Bichlal. How far does Israel go? What are the borders of Israel? How far is Israel? There's a famous, you ever heard there's a Rav called Rav Yaakov Ariel's brother, Rabbi Yisrael Ariel? You heard of him? Rabbi Yisrael Ariel of Mechon HaMikdash? Rabbi Yisrael Ariel wrote this book about the borders of Israel, and according to him, it goes all the way up to like Turkey, all the way down to I don't know where to, and all the way. It's huge. These borders. So there's a joke about how Rav Ariel meets Rav Avichai. You know what Rav Avichai is? Rav Avichai is the guy that goes around the world looking for the 10 tribes, and he thinks that all these tribes around the world are Jewish, right? So he wants to meet Rav Ariel. He says, Rav Ariel, listen to this. I was just now on the border of Pakistan and India, whatever. I don't know if they're on the border of each other. And I found 50 million tribe of 50 million Pakistanians that are all descendants of Shevet Zvulun. 50 million Jews. What do we do with them? Rav Ariel goes, Pakistan? Yeah, that's in the borders. Don't worry. They can stay there, right? It's part of Eretz Yisrael. So what are the borders? What are the borders? That's a good question, which I'm not going to right now. But wait a second. According to what I just said now, I wasn't very accurate. Why? Because the borders, do they really make a difference? If there's no Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, what do I care if there's a border? Mm-hmm. See, that's always a question. What is the relationship between a border and Kedusha? Let's say I argue for whatever that the border is to the Litani River. I don't know. I'm just making that up right now in Lebanon, right? So all that area right now, let's say, is under the biblical borders. Which, by the way, there are 2 biblical borders in the Tanakh. You know that, right? There's actually maybe 3. The first one is in Brit Ben Abetarim. Brit Ben Abetarim is huge. It's mamash half of the Middle East, right? But then we have the borders in Sefer Bamidbar. We're coming up in a few weeks. Which is more specific, much smaller, and there's a machloket. For example, what is the southern river in Mitzrayim? Is it? I'm not going to go into right now. But whatever it is right now, whatever the borders are, what I just said means that it doesn't make much of a difference necessarily what the borders are if there's no kedusha. So
should there be kedusha?
Correct. But if there's no kedusha right now, so, right now there's no Kedusha, so does it make a difference? So what do I gain by knowing the borders if there's no Kedusha? More important, how is Kedusha created? How is Kedusha created? And the last question, of course, the most fascinating one is, Can Kedusha be done today?
We have that Kedusha Shvi.
Can we bring back Kedushat Eretz Yisrael? How does one do that? So there's a lot of questions, but I want to go back to the original idea. The original idea differentiates between Eretz Yisrael as a border and Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. What's the difference? So Rabbi Soloveitchik, in the Soloveitchik family, this has become a very well-known idea that has been developed in the Brisker family. It has been brought down by many people. Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik, I think, said it the best. Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik, the Rav's younger brother, Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik wrote about this and explained the following. It's a very, very basic element, a very basic understanding of our topic before we continue. We must distinguish between, when we talk about Eretz Yisrael being halachically special, we must distinguish between Shem Eretz Yisrael and Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. It's a classic Brisker Chakira. Shem Eretz Yisrael, said Rav Soloveitchik, is anything that's called and named Eretz Yisrael within the borders of Israel. Kedushat Eretz Yisrael is limited to the historical Kedusha that was created. We'll soon see when and where, which creates the Kedusha for mitzvot hatlot ba'aretz. And I'll explain. We know, the Kuzari says you can only receive prophecy in Eretz Yisrael. Correct? Yeah. The Rambam says you can only become a rabbi, a real rabbi. You can only receive smicha, which we don't have, real ordination, in Eretz Yisrael. Now I ask you, according to that, can you receive smicha? If we had a Beit Din Hagadol, can you receive smicha in the Jordan Valley today? Can you receive nevuah, prophecy, in the Jordan Valley today? I have another question. Wait 1 second. The mitzvah of making aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, does it apply to Jordan Valley today? So Rabbi Soloveitchik will say, all these three things that I just mentioned now, they're examples, aliyah, smicha, and nevuah, they have to do with Shem Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael within the borders is a country which Akadosh Baruch Hu chose and made his land. It's his land. No. Einei Hashem Elokei Chaba. Akadosh Baruch Hu says explicitly that he has a special connection. It's explicit in Sefer Dvarim that Akadosh Baruch Hu has a special connection to Eretz Yisrael. Einei Hashem Elokei Chaba. Tamid. My Abba once explained beautifully. He said, you know, when I look ahead, straight ahead, right to the end of the room, I can see Mr. Sherazin sitting in the back of the room, right? But at the side of my left, I can see Phil. So my Abba explained, when Akadosh Baruch Hu says, Einei Hashem Elokei Chaba, it's as if Akadosh Baruch Hu is always staring at Eretz Yisrael. He sees the world as if on the side of his eyes. But his focus is Eretz Yisrael. Now what does that mean? That Eretz Yisrael is special? I don't know exactly what that means. But it means that it's God's land. And therefore, Nevuah, the idea of prophecy, stems from the fact that this is God's land. You can't get it anywhere else. It has nothing to do with Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. If we're here, we're not here, this is God's land. To get smicha is about God's land. Because the idea of ordination is connected to Moshe Rabbeinu and Akadosh Baruch Hu, given the Torah. That's in Eretz Yisrael. The mitzvah of making aliyah has nothing to do with Kedusha. It has to do that this is God's land. You know, so that I'm not trying to explain this. There's a beautiful idea of Rav Goren about this. Maybe if I have time, I'll talk about it later. However, Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, said Rav Soloveitchik, that has to do with a very technical question. Is this land kadosh? If it is, anything growing on it has Kedusha, and therefore restrictions. Now, we have to understand how is Kedusha created. So the Rambam, if you look in the source in front of you, the Rambam explains, based upon the Gemara, that there were two Kedushot in Jewish history. There were two times when we made the land kadosh. We, people, I said before, people make things kadosh. When was the first time? We call it Kedusha Rishonah and we call it Kedusha Shniya. When was Kedusha Rishona done? In the days of Yehoshua. And Kedusha Shniya, oh look at this is cool. It would be cool if you can actually erase it. Kedusha Rishona, days of Yehoshua. Kedusha Shniya was done? Ezra and Nehemiah. Now what happened in between? Why did Ezra and Nehemiah have to do another Kedusha? So the Gemara and the Rambam Paskins, Kedusha Rishona Kicha Lisha'ata was done for the time being, Velo Kicha Latid Lavo, but wasn't for the future. And that's why in Churban Beit HaMikdash by the Babylonians, Beit Rishon, Kedusha was annulled, cancelled. For 70 years, there was no Kedusha in Eretz Yisrael. Shemitah didn't apply then. Anything growing, nothing had no Torah Ma'asrot. After 70 years, whatever the calculation is, Ezra and Nehemiah came back, and they returned. They brought back Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, but however, this time the Kedusha Shniya is forever. Can be cancelled. Which means that nowadays, how do I know what has Kedusha? Very simple. Any place that Jews lived in Beit Sheni period has Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. If Jews didn't live there during the Second Temple period, there's no Kedusha.
Why wasn't it cancelled after the Second Court?
Oh, that's the question. First of all, it's a Machloket Rishonim. Not everyone agrees. This is the Rambam's opinion. It's a Machloket Rishonim. The Rambam paskins that Kedusha Rishona Kisha L'Shata V'Loti Lavo, Kedusha Shniya forever. So before we go into the question that you just asked, let's just understand that halachically this is huge. The ramifications are huge, right? Meaning, if I want to know, if I live in the Arava, if I live in Eilat, if I live in the Golan Heights, whatever I live in Eretz Yisrael, and I want to know, is there Kedushat Eretz Yisrael where I am living, then you would have to ask a historian or an archaeologist to tell you if that area was under Jewish rule in Beit Sheni period. But the question that you asked is very important. What's the difference between both Kedushot? So the Rambam answers this. If you look at the Rambam in front of you, it's in Hebrew, I'm in translation. The Rambam explains Lama ni omer. First of all, he explains. Before I go on, the Rambam says that there's a third kedusha, Kedushat Yerushalayim. Kedushat Yerushalayim, paskins the Rambam, can never be annulled. Even though it was done by Kedusha Rishonah, it wasn't cancelled. The Ravid disagrees, by the way. The Ravid thinks that Kedusha Rishonah was cancelled, also applies to the Beis HaMikdash. That's why, according to the Ravid, theoretically, there's Rav Lichtenstein doesn't agree with this, but theoretically you could argue that according to the Ravid, you would be able to walk all over Har HaBayit today. The reason why we hold everyone, the common psak by everyone in Israel is we're not allowed to walk into the mosque area because there we paskin, Kedusha is still there today. Kedushat Yerushalayim, Kedushat HaMikdash was never destroyed. Where do we get that from? In Vayikra it says, Vashimoti et Mikdashchem. Chazal say, even though I will desolate, the Mikdash, the Kedusha remains. The Gemara explained why. How you can learn that from the pasuk, right? Vashimoti, the verb is Vashimoti Mikdashchem. The Gemara says it could be the opposite. Et Mikdashchem Ashamem. But because the verb first comes, I will desolate, Vashimoti Mikdashchem, even after desolation, the Torah uses the phrase Mikdash. You see that after desolation is still Kedusha. That's the Gemara's proof, explaining Chazal. So according to that, it's still Kadosh, yes?
Don't we also believe that the Kedusha existed before that?
No.
Because Yaakov said this is the holy place.
That's not a halachic Kedusha. That's not a halachic Kedusha. No, that's like saying, tell me, where Moshe Rabbeinu stood by the sneh, is that today a Kadosh place? Is Har Sinai a Kadosh place?
We invited.
Mapitom. It was just for that moment. Mamash not. The Har Sinai today. Would anyone say Har Sinai is Kadosh today? When Moshe Rabbeinu went up, anyone touching the mountain would be killed. But that was just for that moment. There was a Gilui for that moment. The sneh, by the way, is whatever. It's the same place, but besides the plot. Right? it has potential kedusha. No one, there's no halachic kedusha that was done then, at the time. And Bichlal, where was Yaakov Bichlal sleeping? Where was he sleeping? Where? I don't know. According to what it says, Beit El. No, I don't know. I'm not sure where he was. But okay, let's not go into that right now. I don't think that's a proof.
Why didn't Hashem say to Moshe, "There's Admas Kodesh for 3 minutes"?
Yeah, for right now, because
He didn't say it. It's Admas Kodesh.
because where he is, we're standing right now.
Right.
But where he is, right? But once he leaves, that's it.
But that's not written there. That's not written anywhere.
Right. Everyone's allowed to go up to Har Sinai. It says.
The sneh,
The sneh is Har Sinai. It's the same thing, by the way. It's Har Chorev. It's the same place.
But Hashem could have said, "It's Admas Kodesh for 3 minutes."
To me, it's so simple. It's just simple that it's just that moment. It's like Yericho. Also Yericho, when Yoshua meets the angel, what does the angel say to him? It's a kadosh place. It means that it's a temporary place. It doesn't mean kedusha, halachic kedusha that remains forever. I think that's simple. I mean, look, the Mishnah.
It's simple either way.
No, because at Har Sinai it says explicitly, correct? That once you're allowed to go up the mountain, right? That says explicitly, and that's the same place as that's the same place as a sneh, according to the pshat, was done in Har Chorev. That's a pshat. It was Har Chorev when they met, right? Anyway, let's go back to what we're saying right now. That according to the Rambam, Kedushat Yerushalayim, the Mikdash remains forever. Why? So Rambam explains. Now you can read inside. לפי שקדושת מקדש וירושלים מפני השכינה ושכינה אינה בטלה והרי הוא אומר והשימותי את מקדשכם אמרו חכמים אף על פי ששמומים בקדושתן הם עומדים אבל חיוב הארץ בשביעית ובמעשרות אינו אלא מפני שהוא כיבוש רבים. How was קדושה ראשונה created according to the Rambam? כיבוש. What's כיבוש? Conquest. Who's conquest? Yoshua. וכיוון שנלקחה הארץ מידיהם in the Babylonian period, בית ראשון, חורבן בית ראשון, בטל הכיבוש ונפטרה מן התורה ממעשרות ובשביעית. We said 70 years, there's no קדושת הארץ. שהרי אינה מן ארץ ישראל. וכיוון שעלה עזרא וקידשה, 70 years later Ezra returned and made it קדוש, לא קידשה בכיבוש, אלא בחזקה. שהחזיקו בה. Oh, the Rambam says, Kedusha Shniya was not done by force. It was done bechazaka. What does that mean? We'll see in a second. And therefore he said, לפיכך כל מקום שהחזיקו בה עולי בבל ונתקדש בקדושת עזרא השנייה הוא מקודש היום. אף על פי שנלקח הארץ ממנו. Meaning even if after the Romans came, it still remains today, and there's Kedushat Eretz Yisrael today. Now go back to our question. 2 questions. How Kedushat done? And B, why is Kedushat Shniya more powerful than Kedushat Rishonah? So the Rambam suggests that Kedushat Rishonah was done by Kibush, Kedushat Shniya b'chazaka. What does that mean? I think the simple answer is the only way to make Eretz Yisrael Kadosh is like we said before. Am Yisrael create Kedusha. When Am Yisrael enters the land of Israel, they separate the land from Israel by claiming it theirs. By claiming sovereignty, by claiming authority over the land of Israel, they thus separated it from everyone else. I mean, Baruch Hu said, Eretz Yisrael is my land. But when we came, we conquered, and we named it, and we called it, and we separated it, right? So Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael creates the Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. And there are 2 ways of doing that. There's a way of conquest in war. That was the days of Yoshua. And then there's Chazaka, which is settling the land and living on it. Now, Rav Soloveitchik, in another place, in the 5 drushes, says, beautiful idea. It's a very beautiful idea. He says, you know why Kedusha Shniya is more powerful? Because war maybe forcefully makes something yours, but it doesn't connect you to something. You know who connects to something? The farmer, the settler. What comes with force can be removed by force, right? Soldiers in a war just go from one place to the other, conquering. They don't settle in that place. They don't feel a shayachut, a connection. So yes, they made it technically theirs, but it's just technical. Says Rav Soloveitchik, Kedusha Shniya is more significant because by Ezra bringing people to settle the land and to hold on to the land, to return from Galut and build the land, that deepens as if Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. That's one suggestion. Wait a second. The Rav Soloveitchik suggests why Kedusha Shniya is more powerful. But yet, Rav Soloveitchik has another beautiful explanation elsewhere. Why Kedusha Shniya is more powerful. This, I think, will blow your minds away because it's just an amazing idea. Rabbi Soloveitchik says the following. When we came to Eretz Yisrael in the days of Yoshua, we came to a barren land, as if, right? No one, there were goyim living there, but there was nothing Jewish as if there. When I mean barren, there was no history there besides Avram Avinu and Yitzchak. We came as a people, we conquered the land, and then we built the Beis HaMikdash. Now, when we built the Beis HaMikdash, what happened? The Baruch Hu, as if Kivyachol came down, as the Rambam says, and created Kedushat HaMikdash. Then the Babylonians came. They beat us in war. They conquered the land. They threw us out. Kedushat Eretz Yisrael that we created was now annulled. But what remained? Kedushat HaMikdash. Right? Kedushat HaMikdash, we just said, remains forever. For 70 years, Yerushalayim was still Kadosh, according to this. Now, says Rav Soloveitchik, according to this, after 70 years, Ezra and Nehemiah came back. Now, if you remember your Tanakh, what was the first thing they did when they came back to Eretz Yisrael in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah? They came to the Mikdash that was destroyed, and they tried to build Yerushalayim. That was the first thing they did. Says Rav Soloveitchik, what is the foundation of Kedushat Eretz Yisrael the second time? The Mikdash. As if they took the Kedusha that existed already and spread it all over the land of Israel. As if they stretched, they expanded the potential Kedusha that existed there already. Which means, what is the source of Kedusha Rishonah? Us conquering. What is the source of Kedusha Shniyah? Kedushat HaMikdash. And what did we say? Kedushat HaMikdash is never annulled. And that can explain why the Rambam Paskins, Kedusha Shniya is never annulled, because its source is Kedushat HaMikdash.
Even though we're a minority.
Because, look, this is a drasha, right? It's a drasha, but the idea is that there was something there already when they came in the days of Beit Sheni. There was already Kedusha in the land. They just as if stretched it, expanded it. So the source of Kedusha can never be annulled because it derives from Kedushat. I have that in front of you, by the way. That's in front of you. This appears in Ala Tshuva, in the Rav Soloveitchik's famous book that written by Pinchas Peli. And at the end, the last chapter of the book, the Rav explains what I just said now. I have it on your sheet. You can look at it. It's in front of you. So this can explain why Kedusha Shniya is more powerful than Kedusha Rishonah. But you're looking at me and saying to me, that's all very nice and great, but what does it have to do with Parashat Ba'alotcha?
Even though there was a minority.
What was your question?
The question is, you said earlier that when they came back from Babel, that they occupied the land and they grew on it, and that became the Kedusha. Did they not grow anything during the first occupation?
Yeah, but where did the Kedusha derive from? What was the moment? If you read you'll see in different books, you'll see poskim, rabbis explain, there was a ceremony of Kedusha. It was done b'milchama. The ceremony of Kedushat Eretz Yisrael the second time was done, there was no kibush. It was done de facto by them living there. But the original Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael was created by the kibush, and there was no kibush second time. So it had to happen according to the Rambam by them living. Now, there's something very vague, there's nothing very not clear here. I agree, because where does it say exactly about the ceremony? What, there's like a thing that you do, Hareini Mikadesh at Eretz Yisrael? I don't know, it's not the same thing at all, but do you know that there's something about making a cemetery. Kedushat, you know the concept of lekadesh bet kvarot before you start a bet kvarot. There's something that you do or say. I don't remember what it is. What is exactly lekadesh et Eretz Yisrael? There's no halachas how to do it exactly. But the Gemara says explicitly, and the Rambam explains, and everyone explains that there is such an idea that it was created, it was done. How? That's people discuss. Because more importantly, if we want to do it in the future, how can we do it in the future? Right? That's a very important question. But the Rambam says that the source of Kedusha Rishonah was Milchama, while the source of Kedusha Shniya was Chazaka. But now you ask me, you're looking at me, of course, and I'm looking at you, and I'm asking you, what does this have to do with what I started with, Vihi, Bנסua, הארון, and Parabalotcha? So here, put everything on the side a second. And I'm going to introduce a new idea right now. The Gemara Masechet Megillah differentiates between vessels, different religious artifacts. The Gemara says that something is kadosh, it has to be buried in the ground when you finish with it. We call that shemus, geniza. So for example, the Gemara says, if you have a torn piece of tefillin, a box of tefillin that was torn, what do you do with it? Geniza. If you have a shofar that has a hole in it, what do you do with it? Throw it out. Thank you. You don't do geniza for a shofar. If you have a lulav that you finished with, what do you do with it? Throw it out. If you have a mezuzah that's torn, what do you do with it? Geniza. If you have tzitzis that are torn, what do you do with it? Throw it out. Why? So the Gemara and Masechet Megillah differentiate between two concepts. Tashmishe, you see the Gemara with also briskers. The Gemara is written by briskers. Tashmishe mitzvah and Tashmishe kedusha. Right? A shofar, a lulav, tzitzis are vessels which we use to perform a mitzvah. When the mitzvah is over, there is no kedusha. By the way, there's only one thing that I know of that is an exception to the rule. Hanerot halalu kodesh hem. Why are they kodesh?
What's your definition of kodesh?
Oh, wait. They're separated. They have a status to them. We said before, what's kodesh? We said, if something is separated for a purpose, there are restrictions to it. You can't just do whatever you want with it. You can't just use it for light. Now, that doesn't make sense, because what should Nerot Chanukah be really more like? Tefillin mezuzah, or like lulav, shofar, and tzitzis? Lichora, lulav, shofar, tzitzis. But wait a second. What is the difference between them? What's the definition of Tashmish Kedusha and Tashmish Mitzvah? Says Rav Soloveitchik very simply. The chiluk is Torah. If something has Torah in it, it has Kedusha. It's only Torah that creates Kedusha. You hear what I said? That's the rule. Mezuzah, Tefillin, Sefer Torah, all have Kedusha. When you finish with them, when they're ripped, when they're torn, what do? You bury them. Rav Shechter has an article in which he says, in the name of Rav Soloveitchik, that's why when the Jew dies, what do you do with the Jew? You bury him, you put him shemus. Why? Because every Jew has Kedusha. What's the source of Kedushat of a Jew? Torah. Every Jew is a letter in the Torah. Right? You know that phrase? Amen. What does that mean? Every Jew is a letter. Every Jew is connected to Torah. Kedushat Yisrael, according to this, is the Kedusha of Torah that every Jew has.
Internalized.
Yeah. So that's why Tefillin, Mezuzah, Sefer Torah have Kedusha. By the way, according to Rav Soloveitchik, what is the source of Kedushat HaMikdash now? Why is the Mikdash Kadosh? Because it has Torah in it. The Luchot HaBrit that sit in the Aron have Kedusha in it. What is the source of Kedusha of a shul? The Torah. A shul without Sefer Torah has no Kedusha.
Well, it can't be destroyed that easy, you know that.
What?
If it wasn't sure, you take out the Torah, you got a problem. Where you sell it, what you do with it.
Well, first of all, you're not allowed to sell a shul.
Yeah, but there comes time you got to do something with it.
With what? With the shul?
Yeah.
So first of all, in Chutz La'aretz, there's no kedusha really in shuls. You know that.
Don't tell that to friends in Europe.
The Gemara said, it's a Gemara. The Gemara says in Masechet Megillah that all shuls in Chutz La'aretz are not kavua. Right? Why? Atidin batei knesiyot beBavel to make aliyah. So halachically that means that every shul in Chutz La'aretz, when it's built, is built on a tnai that it once might move, and therefore the kedusha of a shul in Chutz La'aretz is not real. It's on tnai. It's much easier to sell a shul in Chutz La'aretz than in Eretz Yisrael. That's halacha. I didn't make that up. It's a Gemara. Okay? It's a Gemara. Now, going back, if what I'm saying is true, that the source of a shul, of a migdash, of mezuzah, tefillin, they are all the same. They come from kedushat HaTorah, and that's what you need gniza, right? So if that's really true, let's go back to our sugya. Kedushat Eretz Yisrael. If we say kedusha is always connected to Torah, so how is kedushat Eretz connected to Torah? Viyehi b'Nesua Aaron vayomer Moshe. What is the Aaron's purpose? The Aaron is a vessel of war. Kuma Hashem v'yafutzo. When the Rambam says, how was Eretz Yisrael become kadosh? Al yidei what? Milchama, war. What? How does war make it kadosh? Because what is the first thing that goes into battle? The Aron. Everywhere we went and fought in the days of Yehoshua, everywhere we fought, the first thing into battle was an Aron with a luchot inside. Yes. Look at Rashi. The Aron with the luchot was in battle. According to some, there were two Aronot. We'll get that in a second. There were two Aronot. The Aron. Now look at what I gave you. Turn over the sheet. In the Torah it says, "V'amar alehem Shema Yisrael." In Dvarim, you are about to enter battle. Atem krivim hayom lemilchama v'oivechem al yirach levavchem al tiru. Don't be afraid. Why? Why should you be afraid? Ki Hashem Elokeichem haolech imachem lilachem lachem im oivechem. Now that's a beautiful idea. God is with you, right? God protects you. That's not just a blessing. Look at the Mishnah I highlighted, the bottom of the Mishnah, Masechet Sota. Ki Hashem Elokeichem haolech imachem lilachem lachem ze machane ha'aron. This is not just an idea. Guys, don't worry, God's with you. Literally, it means God's with you, because who walks before the machaneh? God. In what form? The Aron. Well, the first thing over the Jordan River was what? The Aron. The first thing in battle was the Aron. How do I know that? Look in the psukim in front of you. Look in Yehoshua. Vayomer Yehoshua bezot idun, ki el chai b'kirbechem, ve'oresh yorush b'pnechem et haknaani v'et hachiti v'et hachivi. Hinei Aron habrit adon kol haaretz over lifnechem et hayarden. Now look at Sefer. Now look at this. If you look at Sefer Shoftim, which I don't have in front of me, Sefer Shoftim, if you recall, is all about the battles. And at some point, the Palestinians of the time, the Plishtim, right? They're not the same. I'm just joking. The Plishtim at the time, the Plishtim at the time, notice that they're losing the war. Why? What's fighting against them? God. And what is that? What is God, according to their understanding, is the Aron. So what do? They steal it. They steal the Aron. Why do they steal the Aron? Because they saw the Aron as being a vessel of war. Because it fought in front of the enemies. Now it makes pshat. Viyehi b'Nesua Aaron vayomer Moshe. Kuma Hashem v'yafutzo oivecha. We are about to enter Eretz Yisrael. The first platoon, the first army unit that goes into Eretz Yisrael are the Kohanim with the Aron. They march in front of the battle. So what's conquering Eretz Yisrael? The Torah. So what makes Kedushat Eretz Yisrael? When Am Yisrael hold the Torah and enter the land of Israel, it creates Kedusha.
But shouldn't that make it permanent? It's
Bekibush. It's still on Bekibush. The Aron is going to Bekibush. The Rambam says What comes before is continued by force. But the idea, I think it's a beautiful idea personally. This is what the Rav writes about. The Rav writes that Kedushat Eretz Yisrael is like any other Kedusha. It's done by Torah. It's when we take the Torah and we spread it around Eretz Yisrael. I'll get back to your question in a second. When we spread Torah around Eretz Yisrael, it creates Kedusha. Now, and the drasha is beautiful. It's a beautiful idea. How do we make Kedusha? When Jews live in Eretz Yisrael learning Torah, they create Kedusha. But now you're going to look at me and say to me, wait a second. But what's Kedusha Shniyah? According to this beautiful idea. So here, it's a drasha, but it's a beautiful drasha of Rav Soloveitchik. And this is what he wrote down in the Yortzeit Shir. He says, who did Kedusha Shniyah? Ezra. Ezra, according to Chazal, it's not. I think it's also Pshat. Is considered to be the second Moshe Rabbeinu. Yes, why? Because Moshe is the father of Torah Shebichtav, and Ezra is the father of Torah Sheba'al Peh. So it says Rav Soloveitchik, Kedusha Rishona was done b'koach Torah Shebichtav. The Luchot, the Torah that in the Aron was spread around. Ezra, by returning to Eretz Yisrael, Ezra is the koach of Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Kedusha Shniyah of Eretz Yisrael stems from Kedusha of Torah Sheba'al Peh, and that Kedusha remains forever. Because it comes from within the people. It's the people living the Torah. It stems from within the eternal Torah of Am Yisrael that settles the land of Israel with its Torah. That Kedusha remains forever. So I know it's a bit of a drasha, what I just said now, and there is a halachic basis here, right? At the end of the day, it's a halachic idea. Kedusha is a Kedusha, isn't a Kedusha. But we try to explain the philosophy, the theology behind the idea of Kedusha Rishona, unlike Kedusha Shniyah, and then we concluded that Kedusha is made by the people, and the source of Kedusha has to be Torah. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's as if existence in this world. How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu exist in this world? He exists as if through the Torah. So Torah creates Kedusha. It's Hashem Kedusha in this world. When we spread the Torah, it creates Kedusha. And that translates into halachic Kedusha. Now it's the last question, because that's one of the more important questions. Can we bring back Kedushat Eretz Yisrael today? Can we bring it back? Okay. First of all, we said that in the Jordan Valley there's no Kedushat today. In the Arava there's no Kedushat today, correct? Any place? What do you mean? According to
the maps that I've seen,
yeah.
the occupation of Eretz Yisrael extended in a big area.
No, but this is not me saying. This is historians saying no Jews in the days of Ezra lived in Jordan Valley.
But they lived there before.
But according to Rambam, it was annulled before. That's the Rambam. That's not me. It's the Rambam. We paskin like this. Shulchan Aruch. That's how we paskin. By the way, have you never seen during Shemitah year in the supermarket lettuce that says on it Gidul Arava? Have you seen it? You've seen it. Why do they do that? Why do they write a Gidul Arava on it?
To get people confused.
To get people to buy it. Why? There's no Kedusha in it. That's why they sell it. It's not a made up thing. It's like, there's a badatz, some badatz signed on it. It's a thing. I didn't make it up. What? Yeah, whatever. Right. Oh, so now here is a very interesting dilemma, which I'm going to end this year with. It's an open question. And this has more to do with, I would say, the religious Zionist community. Many rabbis within the religious Zionist community have argued that perhaps in 1948, when we conquered the land of Israel, perhaps the Kedusha came back. Rav Zevin, who was a huge Talmud Chacham, the father of Encyclopedia Talmudit, and he was a master Talmud Chacham. I mean, the guy was a genius. He in 1948 wrote an article after they conquered the Negev, and he brought this question up. And he suggested, what are the halachic ramifications with the fact that we conquered the Negev? There are two possibilities. A, perhaps we are doing a third Kedusha. Kibush. Like the Rambam, like Kedusha Rishon was Kibush, we're also doing the Kibush. Or perhaps it is bringing back Kedusha that existed before. We're just empowering it and giving it. Now, do you understand? The nafkamina is huge. If we say that Kibush today, fighting a war today, brings back Kedushat Eretz Yisrael, then the nafkamina is Shemitah, K'mot Ma'asrot, all mitzvot, lo ba'aretz. Apply now. If we argue that we can bring back Kedusha, it's a huge nafkamina, very important idea. This is disputed and argued, and I would say that you'll find more in the religious Zionist community who would argue this argument. That they would say that perhaps we have to be machmir. We have to be machmir that the Arava has Kedusha.
Is that a fancy way of saying we conquered the land?
No, it's saying that the conquering the land has halachic ramifications. So by the way, you should know that there was a famous discussion about this in the 50s between some poskim, that it could be, and this is fascinating, because look how a political argument can be carried on in the halachic world. In the 48 war, Chayalei Tzahal, wherever they conquered, they had, let's say, they had some. They took shalal. They took, how do you say shalal in English? They took bounty. They took vessels, Egyptian plates and whatever. Now, today's world, I know it sounds a bit funny, like who would use them, but there was a question: can they use them? So what the halacha is, if it's owned by a goy, and you buy it from a goy, you have to tovel in the mikveh, right? Forget the kashrus right now. Forget kashrus. You have to tovel in the mikveh. Just like you buy anything, you tovel in the mikveh. However, if you borrow from a goy, what's halacha? You don't have to, right? I remember once, years ago, I went with my wife to South Africa, and we went on a little 2-day drive down by Cape Town, and we bought a barbecue. It was the price of a regular barbecue was like a throwaway barbecue in Israel. It's like 20 shekel. But this really nice barbecue. We used it for one night, but I had no mikvah. I had to tovel the grill. I wasn't near the ocean. I had to tovel the grill. So we stayed wherever we stayed at that night at the camp. I went to the goy there. I said to him, I would like to give you this brand new barbecue as a present, which is MS. Why? Because I left it there. I didn't take it with me. He said, wow, that's so nice of you. I said, but if you don't mind, I would like to use it tonight. Is that okay? Can I borrow it from you tonight? He looked at me like, thought I was crazy. I said, yeah. He said, yeah, you can use it tonight. I said, but I'm leaving it. It's yours. I'm just borrowing it for tonight. He said, yeah, that's fine. So it's not a great solution, by the way. Don't use this at home. But don't try this at home, they say. But I was stuck, right? So here was a question. These vessels that the Chayalei Tzahal took, is the conquering of them considered that kinyan, that you bought them, and now you own them, and therefore you have to tovel them? Or are you borrowing them from goyim, and therefore you don't have to do? Oh, why borrowing? Because some rabbis claimed that when we conquered the land, we never intended, the Israeli government never intended to stay there, then perhaps it wasn't real kibush. So you can argue that 1967, this is a famous, there's articles about this in the poskim, that is the Kedusha, Gordon writes about this, the Kedusha of what we call Yudav Shomron, right? When the Israeli army conquered it, people like Moshe Dayan had no kavana to Chas v'Shalom to claim it ours, right? Moshe Dayan gave Yerushalayim back, right? Whatever. Mm-hmm. So can you argue that the kibush was done al t'nai, and therefore is not powerful enough for our purpose? So these are fascinating questions, as you can see. which I just proved to you that the political agenda of a government could have an effect on the halachic ramifications whether or not one can create Kedushat Eretz Yisrael today. Yeah, but Sinai might be more difficult. Sinai, as you know, is questionable if it's Bechal Eretz Yisrael.
Okay, so how about...
It's never part of it.
Part of it might be. Part of it, half of it. But part of it might be. But then we go into another sugya, which I'm not going to right now, the Gemara in Gittin, which is Kibush Yachid. Syria. David HaMelech, right? The Gemara in Gittin, famously, the beginning of Gittin, talks about how there's a concept of not Kibush... Look, you saw the Rambam? The Rambam used Kibush Rabim. You saw the word? There's a halachic concept of Kibush Yachid. What is the status quo of a Kibush Yachid, which David HaMelech did in the days of David in Syria? In Syria, the Gemara says, it's Chayav Trumot Uma'asrot Midirabanan, the Gemara says. Because Kibush Yachid. Why, how, what, where, for another time. But that's, I just, to conclude, I try to explain why the idea of Vayi Bנסוע Aron, when the Aron goes and the enemies disperse, it's because the Aron ultimately was also a vessel of war that was used during the conquering of Eretz Yisrael. According to what we said, it's the Torah that creates Kedusha, and therefore the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, the Kibush, in the days of Yeshua, stems from the Aron's Torah that brought down Kedusha to Eretz Yisrael. And of course, with that I'll end, the Kedusha of Yerushalayim, Uvemenucha Yomar, Uvemenucha, when the Aron settles in Yerushalayim, and it doesn't travel from place to place, that's Kedushat Olamim. Because the idea of the Aron in war was to really go from place to place spreading Kedusha, but at the end, it settled in one place, Uvemenucha Yomar Shuva Hashem Revivot Alfei Yisrael. The Kedusha there is Olami. The Kedusha there is forever in the Mikdash, in Yerushalayim. And by the way, I thought someone would ask me, wait a second, you said that the Torah and the Aron create Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash, but in Beit Sheni, there was no Aron. So I thought someone would say to me, I was sure someone would jump up. I was ready for it. Jump and say, oh, but there was no Luchot in Beit Sheni. So Rav Soloveitchik points out that that's why the Rambam writes explicitly that in Beit Sheni the Aron was buried under. The Rambam mentions that because the Aron is buried. The Rambam says it's buried under the mountain, and therefore the Kedusha is there. Because why? Because the Rambam holds that it's the Torah and the Luchot which make Kedusha, and that's why the Rambam had to add that somewhere as if under the mountain is the Aron.
Today.
Again, I don't want to go into all the conspiracy theories, but that's the source of Kedusha. Toda Rabba.